So in my time on self-improvement, I've come across many different lessons and learned a lot of things from my experiences. But this one, by far, is probably one of the single most important ones. So let's get into it. So this one is really important because it taught me the importance of knowing how to balance things out, but probably not in the way you think. So this lesson is simply that not everything you do in your self-improvement journey and basically in your day-to-day life has to be in service of productivity, becoming more productive, and like hustling. So you've probably seen like the hustle culture movement, like, oh, you work 24 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. You do a bunch of stuff, you get no sleep. Basically just working as much as physically possible. And you've also seen like the no hustle culture is bad, blah, 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 like 3-4 hour work week. And I find myself in this argument in my head where I'm like, oh no, I should keep on working. But some people say that like working too little is bad, but also working too much is bad. But basically something important that I've learned is that hustle culture is bad, but its antithesis, not doing anything, is also shit. A challenge that I find myself against is that when you get to a certain point in your self-improvement journey, it feels like everything you do is in service of becoming more productive, and this is bad, like really bad. And the main reason why always doing something to become more productive, like going on a walk, not because you want to go on a walk and you like nature, but because it'll make you more productive, and like going and hanging out with your friends, not because just to go hang out with your friends, but because you want to improve your social skills and blah blah blah. Like all of that stuff is good, but it also has a downside. And the downside is that doing this all of the time, always doing something in pursuit of becoming more productive or gaining something from a seemingly normal activity, is that you burn out. You burn out so quickly when everything you do, every microscopic detail in your life is oriented towards a certain goal. And like having all of your actions on a day-to-day basis aligned towards a certain goal is super cool. It's super good, right? But when even the normal activities you do always seem to be in service of this bigger goal, it starts to make everything in life, like it starts to burn you out so quickly. It's like when a lot of people say like, oh, I want my passion to be my work. Yeah, but then you're passionate about something and you're like, yeah, I want it to be my work. But then you realize that having it be your work means you have to do it all the time, and you realize you don't want to do it all the time. And so your passion no longer becomes your passion, and it fades it into nothing. And this is kind of the same thing here. It's like saying, oh, I want everything in my life that I do to be in service of becoming more productive. That's not the right thing to do. It's really not. And it's simply because it leads to burnout, and it leads to you despising the thing that you once so loved and that carried you. So the guy who like obsesses over self-improvement so much, but then he also like he takes breaks. He goes to see his friend, not because he'll improve his social skills and because it's good for his like happiness, just because he wants to go see his friends. The guy who goes to watch a soccer game just because he wants to go watch a soccer game. The guy who takes a week off, because he wants to, because it's good for him, will win over the guy who's always obsessing over every single detail in his life, who never takes a break, who never finds the right balance. And the right balance doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to do a little bit of self-improvement and then I'm going to go play video games for 2 hours. That's not the right balance. The right balance is I'm going to push to the limit, to the edge of my comfort zone, to the point where I feel like I'm burning out, and then I step back. I go see my friends. I go take a vacation. You basically just have to find out how much work it takes for you to burn out, and then do as much of that work as possible, and then just stop at the very end. So you're basically just working to your limit. This is all about like finding your zone of discomfort and then pushing past it, but not to a point where like your whole life just crumbles and you just feel like a super bad. So there are kind of 3 things to regulate, like to make sure that you don't always obsess over becoming more productive and this hustle culture type thing. And the first one being just set limits to your work. Like if you're like me and you have a purpose and you have work, maybe it's for you, it's school, maybe it's a YouTube channel, maybe it's like working out, set limits. And this is something that I struggle with. Like I just, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I could be reading, but I also could be doing more, which will get me like farther ahead in life. Or I could be doing this thing, but I should be doing this thing until like I basically just can't work anymore and my brain just can't handle working. Like that's something I do way too often. Or just like work until my brain literally just like can't work anymore. So you need to set limits. For example, you can say, all right, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna work and then I'm gonna just go to school, and then I can work until 5 o'clock. and then at 5 o'clock, you stop thinking about work altogether. And that doesn't mean that you stop doing everything and you just like become lazy, right? You can still do good habits, but just find the right balance of doing as much work as possible without burning it. The second thing is you need to find a hobby that's something outside of self-improvement. And for me, this is soccer. Like, you need to find a hobby in which you can completely devote yourself to this one thing. Like, it's a craft that you perfect every single day. And when you go into this session, like, you go in, you know, you might feel sluggish, you might feel tired, and then you come back out, you feel energized, you feel ready to take on the world because you've been doing something that excites you, that you love, that's outside of the things that you do in your everyday life, that's outside of your obsession over self-improvement. And so this allows for you to recharge, all about, you know, making social connections, blah, blah, blah. So it's a really good thing to find a hobby outside of like your self-improvement day-to-day, like comfort zone, right? Because finding a new hobby, like joining a new sports club, doing new activities is doing something that's outside of your comfort zone. So it's a good thing. And the reason you don't want everything that you do to be measured in units of productivity is because it turns you into like a psychotic self-improvement in self, who just like stays in his room watching like sweaty self-improvement videos all the time, and that's just like not a good thing, because you don't gain life experiences when all you do is productivity. Like, sure, you might be ultra disciplined, but it's in the sphere of productivity and self-improvement. And although you might feel disciplined, like, your comfort zone might actually be to like restrain yourself, or like your discomfort might actually be learning how to be disciplined about discipline. This is the whole thing here. Discipline is great, but you also have to learn how to be disciplined about discipline and to not be like this super robotic person all the time. I have a newsletter below. I also have a free habit tracker if you want to click that. It's a weekly thing. You just print it out, you put it on your wall, and you just check it off. Great for self-improvement progress. Hope this helped you, and I cannot wait to see the progress that you make. Cheers, bro.